comes in certain levels, in certain measures, in certain dimensions. So today I'm going to be talking about the fourth dimension. But to cover the fourth dimension, I must also take you through the first three dimensions that leads us to the fourth dimension. When we're talking about grace in the Old Testament word for grace is Canaan, C-H-A-N-A-N, Canaan. That word Canaan in the Old Testament means for one of a superior to now bend over and bestow upon an inferior. One that's a superior that will bend over and bestow upon one that's an inferior. What is he bestowing? He's bestowing something that the inferior does not deserve. He's giving the inferior something that the superior now owns, and he bestows it upon the inferior. So when you have that picture of the Old Testament, you have the Old Testament understanding of a king who is now bending over and now blessing or bestowing one of his servants, someone who doesn't deserve, something of great value and of great worth. Come on, somebody. When you get over to the New Testament word for grace is charis, C-H-A-R-I-S, charis. The word charis is where we get the word graciousness from. So when we understand the Old Testament word of Canaan, tie it to the New Testament word charis, put the two together, you now have a picture of a king who is now bending over and he's now blessing his servant with grace that he does not deserve. You need to look at somebody right now and say, he's talking about me right now. You know good and well you don't even deserve the graciousness of God, but he gave it to you anyway. You don't even understand how awesome God really is because you've really not taken time to think about how much God has blessed you with when you did not even deserve it. There are some things that you are sitting with right now that you know for a fact if it had not been for the grace of God, you would not even have it right now. Let's start out with the first dimension called the salvation grace. Salvation grace is the first grace that God bestows upon mankind. He comes in and sees you in a messed up situation, and he looks from heaven into the earth, and the superior God looks down upon inferior man, and he bestows upon him what is called grace. And he gives him now a key or access into something that he could not have gotten without God's help. How many of you know that if it wasn't for God's grace, you wouldn't even be saved right now? You didn't get saved because you felt like getting saved. You didn't get saved because you were so good. You didn't get saved because you earned salvation. How many of you know that each one of us that are sitting here and standing here on this Sunday morning, I don't care how dressed up, how cute you are right now, you know good and well you had a death sentence on your life because the wages of sin is death. And if it had not been for grace, you would have been dead right about now. I don't know who I'm talking to this morning, but somebody needs to become a little bit more appreciative of the grace of God that's up on your life. God could have left you in that situation. God could have left you in that hospital room. God could have left you in that morgue. But God decided to raise you up right in the midst of your mess. And baby, it wasn't when you came to the point that you wanted to get yourself together, because you couldn't have gotten yourself together because you was a mess before you knew what mess was. But in the midst of your mess, God saved you. Right when you was in your worst situation, God saved you. You didn't even know what it was like to be free, but God snatched you out of the pits of hell and brought you into a place called his presence and said, I'm about to save you. I'm about to clean you up. I'm about to straighten you out. I'm about to fix your problems. I'm going to now turn your enemies into your best friends. And that kind of grace is bestowed upon you without you even understanding you don't even deserve it. Somebody say saving grace. Grace, when you understand it at its fullness, gives you the ability or the access to do for you what you cannot do for yourself. Grace becomes a key to open up doors to now do divinely for you what you could not do for yourself. Grace empowers and equips you to now supernaturally do things that you